Chapter 93. The first time Maricel Alcantara caught a glimpse of her own future, she was 5. The jeepney put them out in front of the hospital on a hot, sunny day. Her mother was gripping her fingers with one hand and helping her grandmother with the other. "This is the wrong entrance," her mother said, staring up at the tall building. "We have to walk." "We can't be late," her grandmother fretted. "If we're late, nothing bad will happen. We won't miss it. And if we do, it's not like a long time ago. We just reschedule in a few weeks." "What happened a long time ago?" Maricel asked. "Nothing terrible, baby," said her mother. "When people missed their appointments for special medicine, they just had to wait a lot longer for their next turn. Your Lola remembers that. Now it's all easy and not so serious." They walked across a parking lot. Maricel's white dress shoes, the ones they'd bought for her cousin's wedding, collected their first scuff when she kicked a piece of stray gravel. The scuff occupied her attention, even with everything else going on. She was afraid her mother would see it and chide her for ruining the good shoes. When they reached a set of metal doors covered in logograms, she stood on one foot and wobbled around, trying to hide the damaged shoe under her skirt. "Don't play like that, Maricel," her mother said, feeding a long paper card into a slot. "You'll fall." "What do the doors say, Lola?" Maricel asked, still wobbling. Her grandmother didn't answer. She was staring at the entrance. "What if they don't let us in? What if we're too late?" The doors opened. As Maricel's mother took her hand again and tugged her through them, a voice seemed to fill the whole building. "Good afternoon, Maricel. Someone is talking to me." She didn't know if it was a man or a woman. That's the system. It only does it in special places and on special occasions. Maricel stared up at the wood carving hanging from the ceiling. It was a multi-toned sunburst, backlit with gold. "Mama, is it going to give us magic powers?" "Heavens no," said her mother, laughing a little. "We're too old, and you're too young. And it only happens to a tiny, tiny number of people, anyway. It's nothing any of us will ever have to worry about." "Oh, that's right." Her family had explained it several times before today, but she'd gotten excited by the system speaking. Her grandmother was having trouble with her memory. It had happened to Lola's mother, too. She had been sad, scared, and sometimes mad since it started. But now it would be all right. They are going to help her. That's why she's here. A man in a strange outfit opened another set of doors for them, and they entered a room full of people. Some were sitting, some were milling around, a few were in wheelchairs. "It's so crowded," her mother said, gripping her hand more tightly. "Maybe I shouldn't have brought Maricel." They said it was fine, but a hand fell softly on Maricel's head, and she looked up from her scuffed shoe to see her grandmother smiling at her. "Other families are here. And she helps me feel brave." "I'm very brave," Maricel said. "Well, it is an experience for us all, I guess. Maricel, would you like to try some juice?" "I know you said, Webby." Maricel's eyes fixed on the heated drink dispensers her mother was looking toward. One of her friends had bragged that she'd gotten to drink it before, and that she had seen an alien before. And now Maricel would be able to say, "So have I." "It's going to taste just like Webby-flavored lollipops, and you don't like those," her mother murmured. "I don't know why you suddenly decided you had to have it." But she wove through the crowd and returned a moment later with 3 paper cups full of a lukewarm, white drink that smelled like spices. "Don't spill it," she cautioned as she handed Maricel one. Maricel held the cup in both hands and took a sip. "I love it," she declared. She had decided to love it already, so there was no going back now. "You do? It's sweet." "Are you sure?" "I'm going to drink all of it." Several minutes later, she was sitting on one of the hard chairs that filled the room, keeping the damaged shoe tucked out of sight behind her ankle and sipping from her mother's serving of Webby. She was determined to finish off every drop available to her so that she wouldn't look like a liar. The Artonan finally appeared. "It's not one of the wizards," her mother said, more to herself than anyone else. "Looks like a regular person. Unless wizards don't always wear the fancy clothes." The Artonin was going to be a wizard when Maricel told her friends about this, that was for sure. There was a short speech she was too bored to listen to after the first few sentences, and then they started the recitation. "Can't I say it, too?" she whispered after she'd listened to the adults speak a couple of lines. Her mother nodded and held a finger to her lips. It was a confusing combination of gestures, but Maricel decided it meant she could join in the reciting as long as she didn't talk about other things right now. Repeating after the alien, she said she was a citizen of Earth, a resource world under the protection of the Empire. She reaffirmed her personal commitment to the contract in general. She agreed that in exchange for everything Earth had received in the past and would receive in the future, the Artonins could have what are select warriors in attendance to work under the something of the contract. She asked her mother while they waited for their turns to touch a large glass panel at the front of the room. Whenever anyone pressed their hand against it, it glowed, and the Artonin gave them a polite little nod before they passed into the next room. They mean avowed. Avowed? Superheroes. And the other people who live on Anzidora. Oh. Then a much more worrisome thought popped into her head. Why do you have to say the words? Are you sick, too? Her mother squeezed her hand. No. I'm healthy. I just wanted to have it recorded and get it out of the way in case I do ever get sick. I didn't have to say it when I got my shots. The shots had happened a couple of weeks ago, and they were a subject she brought up as often as possible, to remind her mother of the fact that she had not shed even a single tear. Your vaccines were different. You said the Artonins made some of them. They did. And I signed a paper that mentioned I agreed to the terms of the contract then, too. Today is more formal because all of these people are getting special healing, instead of just a few shots. This is a part of it. A ceremony to mark the occasion. There were a lot of shots. Her mother grinned and hugged her close. All right. A lot of shots. Big ones. Huge ones, her mother agreed, right before she pressed her hand to the glass panel. It glowed white, and the Artonin person gave her the nod of thanks. Maricel stood on her tiptoes and slapped her own hand against the panel. Nothing happened. Very disappointed, she slapped it again. A hand tapped her on the shoulder. She looked up into a brown face that was a little too purplish to match anyone else in the room. She thought the Artonin was a woman, but it was mostly because they had a colorful embroidered hairband. Too young, the Artonin said in a heavy accent. They smiled at Maricel. Glow stick. From their pocket, they removed a bright pink tube and handed it to her. Thank you, she said. She waved it around, pretending it was a magic wand, while she followed her mother and grandmother through to the next room. Line of asterisks. Maricel, did you hear? Dreaming Bear died. She looked up from a video her grandmother had just sent her of her youngest brother trying and failing to feed himself breakfast. He was covered all over in what looked like smashed banana. One of her friends was running toward her across the expansive pavement in front of their junior high building. Who? Maricel asked. Dreaming Bear. From China. She was trying to bring in a runner our age who was being held for pickup and transport to Anzidora, and he killed her. Oh. Must be a superhero. She didn't care, but she didn't mind pretending for Carmen's sake. That's terrible. Carmen nodded. Anyway. Jacob. Maricel groaned. I haven't decided. He's so sweet. But I'm not sure I feel like that about him. You don't have to be sure. He's perfect for you. Say yes. I don't say yes. Maricel smiled. Maybe. Carmen slapped both hands to her face dramatically. Okay. Let's have school. Let's have school, Maricel agreed. Arm in arm they walked toward the front doors. A gaggle of their other friends were gathered in between a pair of palm trees by the entrance. Her phone pinched again, and she looked down at it. This time her grandmother was forwarding a link to a website for a girls' swimming club. Maricel smiled. She had told her Lola she thought she should try to find a hobby like so many of her classmates had. Maybe swimming. It seemed like junior high was a time when you were supposed to want some special thing for yourself, and Maricel really didn't. She loved hanging out with friends, playing with her little brothers, and spending time in the kitchen with her mother and grandmother, talking about anything and everything while they cooked. It's too boring, isn't it? I'm supposed to want more, I think. Since everyone else seems to. She had started telling people she wanted to be a doctor, just so that she wouldn't sound like she had no dreams at all. It's a lucky thing to be happy with exactly what life has given you, her grandmother had said last night when she brought up the problem while they were making adobo together. If you're happy now, you'll probably be even happier when you're a swimming doctor. Then she had laughed and laughed. Line of asterisks. Stop squirming. I'm not. Nathaniel. You're wriggling like a fish. How am I going to know if you're tall or not? Maricel knelt beside the door to her parents' bedroom, trying and failing to look serious. It was evening, and the middle child in their family had insisted on being measured before bed because his teacher had said he might not be the tallest boy in the class and he wanted proof to the contrary. You can do it, Maricel. Her stepfather's voice called enthusiastically from the end of the hall. Stretch your neck, Nathaniel. Her mother cried. If he's short, we'll feed him more, said her grandmother. Maricel rolled her eyes. How did I get the hard job when you're all right here? Nathaniel finally stopped bouncing and stood with his back flat against the door. She took the measurement. She informed him that he was a very average height for a 7-year-old, and then she tickled him until he forgot to be disappointed about it. What do I want to be in the future? Thought Maricel, as she drank a glass of water and climbed into bed that night. A note was stuck to the underside of the shelf over her bed, taped up beside the pictures of her and Carmen wearing matching hats at the end of last year. It was a reminder that she was going swimsuit shopping with her mom next Saturday. Nothing more than this. I don't want to be anything more than this. I really am so lucky. The system chose her that Friday. As an S rank. It never occurred to her that she shouldn't tell her family. She thought she needed their help to keep it secret. She thought it was obvious, from the very moment that an human voice whispered in her ear, that it had to stay a secret. Because Avowed got sent away, and they would never want her to be sent away. But after days of crying and shouting, and Maricel not understanding how everything was going so wrong when it had never, ever gone wrong before. They took her to the consulate. Her family took her there themselves and made her register. Because it was safer for her, they said. Safer for you and for us, Angel, they said. Because her powers would be frightening. Because it was the right thing to do. Because they could never hide it forever. There was a good future ahead of her. A great future. A future where she could have so many extraordinary things. Please stop crying, Maricel. You're an Avowed now. And not just any Avowed. A rare, amazing S rank. You might see other worlds. Because of you, people like your grandmother get to live full lives. You yourself might live for centuries if you're lucky. If you're lucky. She never did go shopping with her mother for the bathing suit. Line of asterisks. Stop crying, Maricel, she thought, lying on floor in a bathroom in Anzidora. She was sobbing beside a tub with a turtle-patterned shower curtain. Someone knocked on the door. She ignored them. She'd ignored Alden Thorne's texts, too. I shouldn't have done that. He's nice. She was too miserable to care that he was nice. I want to go home. I want to go home. I don't want to live my life just seeing pictures of them all through screens. And she couldn't stand to set foot beyond that door, into that party where Constantine was bouncing around making plans to surprise his parents, and so many of those other people who had happy families, too, were acting like it was a chore to have curfews, rules, and love. She kept trying and failing to fall into some kind of sync with them. It wasn't working. She fixed her eyes on the door. This family actually marked their children's heights there, on the other side, in permanent ink. They could keep on doing that for years to come. I'll probably never measure my little brothers again. Even if she did, it would just be some odd request she made herself on a rare visit. A text appeared. The sender's name was Jay. He was a write-in intake. Are you sure? She thought of the heights on the door. She thought of her family. I can't. You shouldn't either. It's dangerous. I know what I'm doing. There's plenty of time if you change your mind. She wiped her face on her hoodie. Maricel, we're doing the punch thing if you're still here. That one was from Alden. He was trying again. Thanks. She had panicked when Tyet texted to ask where she'd disappeared to and lied about leaving with a headache. Stupid. Completely stupid. There was no way to leave the apartment without being spotted by 40 people, but if they were all about to start their drinking thing, maybe she could make it while they were distracted. Maybe her new roommates wouldn't see her and start to hate her. Carmen hasn't called me in 2 weeks. I don't think she really wants me to call her anymore. She was jealous of Maricel. She was tired of Maricel's complaining. Why didn't the system pick her? Maricel thought as she pulled her hood up over her head and listened for the sounds of the drinking contest getting underway. If it had just picked her instead of me, everyone would have been happy. The giant suitcase stood, packed and waiting, by the door. Smaller bags and containers were strapped to it with all the belongings that had been collected at the last minute. The apartment was clean. The furniture was arranged so that it looked like it had never been used for target practice. Victor was in his carrier, and Alden was making a noble effort to lint roll every last strand of cat hair from the sofa. Bo sat cross-legged in the armchair beside Victor, holding the smashed aluminum disc that had once been a soda can and watching Alden work. You've got to tell me the second you get back home. Alden tried to inject some energy into his voice. You have to make up fully with Jeremy. And you should swing by the consulate and say hi to Gorgon for me. I will. Gorgon was intensely upset when you went missing. Alden peeled another layer of adhesive off the lint roller. You've read Gorgon? Yeah. On purpose. He's a member of an unknown species chained up for crimes, and you were feeding him snacks. I wanted to make sure he wasn't having sinister thoughts toward you. Bo. What? I think Gorgon's a good person. Well, he obviously likes you, too. He seems pretty fond of the people who walk through the lobby in general, as long as they're not there to gawk at him and they don't dirty the place up. Alden looked over his shoulder. Really? Gorgon didn't offer humanity a lot of praise in his experience, but he had seemed fascinated by Alden's memories of the city. Bo was nodding. Yeah. He's not easy to understand, even when you're feeling what he is. He's got very alien emotions. Sometimes, he seems to make an effort to mimic human expressions and body language, quite social of him if you think about it. But it can be misleading. I knew he appreciated you, but I would not have expected him to feel something similar to anguish when you went missing. I couldn't take his alien mess on top of my own human one, so I steered clear of his feelings after that brief glimpse. Alden felt rather touched. And he says we're not friends. Do you think he wants a robot vacuum for the lobby? I've been thinking he might like one. Go for it. If he hates it, I'll take it. A text message arrived, and Alden read it with a weight like an anvil in his stomach. Car's on schedule, he said lightly. It'll be here in 10 minutes. He forced himself to stop aggressively rolling up cat hair, and he took a seat on the sofa. I'll be back soon, said Bo. Maybe not back here, but back. You can brain text me until our synapses go on strike. I remember saying something similar when I first told you I was unavowed. And you told me long-distance friendships never worked out like people hoped they would. Bo cleared his throat. I must have been having an uncharacteristically stupid moment. It'll work out. We're bound in profound new ways now. You know about my powers. We've decided to be a heroic tandem. We wept together. I don't recall you weeping. I offered to weep with you. It's the same. Alden smiled. You did. Sorry. I don't mean to mope. By the way, before you vanish, there's something I need to ask you to do for me. His friend stood up and stretched. Sure. But you're feeling nervous suddenly. You're still reading me then? That's fine. I'm nervous because it's important to me that you say yes and that it not be some uncomfortable big deal between us. Bo lowered his arms. What is it? Don't interrupt me before I've finished explaining why I made this decision. I'm sending you around 2 million gold. Bo's mouth fell open. Don't interrupt. It's about half of everything I have. It's not a gift. If you're willing to take large sums of money as a gift, I'd love to give you some, but I know you won't. This isn't a present for you. It's not me being overly generous or self-sacrificing. It's money for survival. Yours. Connie's. Jeremy's. Victor's. I want you to use it in whatever way you think is best to make sure that all of you stay alive, healthy, and safe. Alden leaned forward and clasped his hands together. It's better for me to split my resources this way. What if I'm off-planet, and I can't communicate with home, and Connie has a major accident? What if you get a summons? It would probably be for an emergency in your case since you haven't formally agreed to the contract. I'd really like for you to have enough money to call and let me know what's happening. Or, if they won't let you because you're empathing at the Artonan equivalent of a Black Ops site, I want you to have enough money to do whatever it is you need to do to get back home safely. He bit his lip. Also, I consider it not unlikely that you will one day have to go on the run from actual superheroes. For being an unregistered. A pretty powerful one. And if that happens, I want you to already have some kind of insanely clever escape plan in place. One that's foolproof because you spent, like, $1 million on it. I don't want to agonize over the escape plan, or try to make it up for you from the other side of the planet. You make it up. And buy yourself whatever it is you need, so that I don't wake up one morning and see you being dragged to jail or stuffed in a body bag by Skiff and Sharon. He sat back and waited for Bo's answer. How dare you? Bo said quietly. Alden started to protest. How dare you think that Skiff and Sharon could defeat me? Bo continued. He trips over his flip-flops. She deleted her own last name. I could take both of them at the same time and not even be late for school. Alden smiled in spite of himself. So someone more awesome than Big Little Snake. But, seriously, you'll take the money and do all of that with it. Yes, said Bo. And I'll try not to let my feelings of inferiority get in the way of spending it. About life gets expensive. I want you to have millions of dollars to keep yourself safe. It makes sense you want to put your own millions toward keeping the people you worry about safe. If we get separated again due to some freak event, we each have a significant hoard to make sure everything that needs to be taken care of gets taken care of. Alden sighed with relief. Thank you so much. It's a huge weight off. Bo ran his fingers through his hair. Around $6 million. That's a lot. I'll ask the system to let me put your name on the account, so that you can access whatever's in it whenever you need to. Can I ask you for a favor? Of course. If I ever do get summoned or accidentally exile myself for a long time, would you check in on my parents? Alden was surprised. Bo gave him a knowing look. I realize you don't like them. They contribute nothing of worth to the world, and I doubt they even wonder where I've run off to when I'm gone. If you could read my emotions, you'd know that I don't like them much either. But I do love them. And worry about them. So. Alden was very surprised. And Bo's feeling you being surprised that he loves his own family. Crap, empath's a heart to be cool around. His face heated. I'll add them to the list of people we look after. Don't put a lot of time and energy into it. It's a thankless task. Just check in every 3 months or so if I'm not here to do it and make sure they're not living on the streets. He took off his glasses and picked up their case from the armrest of the chair. And mail me these. They are much nicer than the pair I buried in Jeremy's yard. They stared at each other across the coffee table. Why does it feel like we're never going to see each other again? That's stupid, right? Alden said finally. It is. We're just freaked out because the last time we said goodbye we almost didn't get to see each other again. So you're freaked out, too. At least it's not just me. Good morning, Alden. This is your driver, Gilbert. I'm parked in front of your building. I'm at your service for the day, so take your time. If you need help with your bags, let me know. Damn it, Gilbert. Couldn't you have caught a few red lights? My ride's here. My ride's here. Bo said with fake cheer, gesturing toward the cat carrier beside his feet. And since I'm about to be completely beyond your wrath, allow me to explain something. Alden raised an eyebrow. I want you to picture me, months ago, trying to hold my shit together on a really bad day. Connie was crying in the bathtub. Jeremy was obsessively vacuuming your house because he couldn't figure out how else to help. And I was standing ankle-deep in garbage outside because the bag had broken. Then Victor, who had been missing for like half a week, sprinted by with a possibly poison-infused rat in his jaws. I knew it. You did do something to my cat. Yes. I chased him yelling, "Here, kitty. Give me the rat. Be a good boy." "Stop, you orange asshole. That's a furniture truck." Alden gasped. He ran at a furniture truck. Oh, he got run over by the furniture truck. Crouched right there in the middle of the lane while it skimmed his ears doing 40 miles an hour. Luckily it had high ground clearance. So I run out into the street, grab the cat, grab the still wiggling rat, and I decide we can't go on like this anymore. It's time for Victor to retire from his wandering criminal lifestyle. Bolting down and stuck a finger through the crate door to pet one of Victor's ears. I started lightly boosting his happiness whenever he was chilling out on the sofa and being sane. "That's all?" Alden asked, confused. "And it completely changed his personality?" I also did it whenever Jeremy was talking to him or petting him. Alden imagined Bo stalking Victor around, waiting for the cat to sit on sofas or approach Jeremy so that he could use his powers to engage in feline emotional massage. So you do practice skill too sometimes. It's different with animals. They have emotions. But those emotions aren't like ours, and they don't intrude on me in the same way. And it's not unethical to make a pet feel better when it's engaging in safe and healthy behavior, I don't think. It was like treat training him. Only my treats are 0 calorie. He frowned. I shouldn't have done it, though. Victor does seem happier now, so I guess he's great. He's learned how to enjoy the good life as a house cat finally. He got over some of his anxieties and his hard-bitten street cat trust issues. He's only chunky because the empty food dishes make Jeremy panic and think he might have forgotten to feed him at all. He was still petting Victor through the door. But fixing even an animal's problems this way is too tempting for me. It makes me think, well, it worked out that time, didn't it? Isn't everyone better off now? I didn't hurt anybody. What if I do it just a little bit more? And that's a slippery slope, Alden concluded. It's the blackest of ice. Bo straightened and cleared his throat. So now I've confessed to being a cat whisperer. I've stolen half of your wealth. And I've made you late for your luxury car service. My work here is done. God, I'm gonna miss you. You'll be so busy learning to coexist with the other super teens, you won't even have time to miss me before we see each other again. That's not true, thought Alden. I already do. Bo waved. Bye for now. Pick up your suitcase. Try not to save too many lives until I'm back home and I start to catch up. Stay safe, Bo. Let's both do that. A few seconds later, he was gone. Alden took a deep breath and let it out. Then he gathered the pile of clothes from the floor, wrapped them around the glasses case, and collected Victor. His skill had completely recovered from last night's experiments, and the bulging suitcase by the door was light when he lifted it, even though his sense of his current entrustor's location was strangely absent. He maneuvered himself awkwardly out into the hall with all of it and stood collecting himself for just a moment longer. The lines of doors stretched in front of him. A girl was staring at apartment 909. She had one of the welcome bags in her hand. She looked scared. Alden walked toward her. Moving in today? She took in his ridiculous number of belongings with wide blue eyes. Yes, greater than she said in Russian. Then she laughed uncomfortably. But I'm just standing here instead of going into the room. Are you moving in, too? Greater than. I'm leaving, said Alden. Don't be nervous. This is an okay place. The Warren is the best part of intake. Rabbits are a really friendly group. Now that it was over, he wished he'd been in a better frame of mind for the past few weeks so that he could have appreciated it all more. My pre-arrival counselor said the same thing. Greater than. You've got this. He didn't have hands free to give her a thumbs up, so he lifted Victor in salute instead. He piled into the elevator with all his stuff, and he didn't bother to stop on the 8th floor to visit the counselor's desk. Nia had left a few days ago, off to work on her Tona for one of her long-time employers. She'd sent him a personal email encouraging him to call her if he ever needed anything and giving him the name of a financial advisor she recommended. Gus had talked to him a couple of nights ago and reminded him that a rabbit should be well-dressed and well-prepared for every occasion and ready to act with less than a minute's notice. And that applies twice for rabbit superheroes. Greater than he'd announced. When you are ready for your first tuxedo, you call me. I will show you how to dress for any party on any planet. Greater than. Then he'd gone back to swearing violently at a goalkeeper from Argentina. The elevator opened onto the empty lobby, and Alden strode out the front doors toward a waiting SUV. Intake was a place for people who were just passing through. After the professional cleaners went over the apartment and removed every last trace of cat hair, the only sign Alden Thurin had ever lived here would be a line of high scores and a pinball machine. Chapter 94. Alden gave Victor one last hug before tucking him back into his carrier. A tag that proved he'd been scanned for diseases and magical contraband was clipped to the outside. He set the cat on the floor of the teleportation bay he'd been assigned. You'll be with Jeremy in a few minutes. Be good. Both of you. When the teleport was complete and he received a text from Jeremy confirming that Victor was in his arms, he sighed with relief. Great work, Victor. Smuggling people through teleportation is officially a family business now. Gilbert, his chauffeur for the day, was waiting for him in the parking garage. It was the first Anisidran parking garage Alden had ever seen the interior of, and he wondered if they were all as cheerful. It was brightly lit, clean, and there were colorful murals on the walls. Chelena North next? Gilbert asked as he held the door for Alden to climb into the back seat of the large SUV he'd booked. Gilbert had the non-avowed notification under his name tag, and he told Alden that he and his D-rank wife had decided to leave behind an avowed zone in Australia and move here to Nzidora for the big city lifestyle. Should I tell him he doesn't have to get the door for me every time? Or am I supposed to let him? Alden buckled his seat belt and checked his text messages. He'd offered rides to several different acquaintances and friends who were planning to move to campus today. Now that Bo was safely gone, he could head back for them. But they were all running late except for Jeffy, of all people. I don't want to ride around with just Jeffy. Jeffy needs a buffer. He could send the car back for the intake crowd later. Chelena North, Alden confirmed, texting Maricel to ask if she was sure she wanted to haul her bags on the train. And then if you don't mind coming back to F to pick up a bunch of people and their stuff after you drop me off. Picking up people and their stuff is what I do. Another text came in. It was from Con, and it just said, thank you, thank you, thank you. Actually, can we swing by Nilama Marina? There's someone there who wants a ride. Line of asterisks. Alden was going to be an amazing roommate. He had decided it last night at the party, about 5 minutes after Lexi had accused him of being a hypocrite. Alden hated that the Meister was even more right about that than he knew. Luke Vilra could arrive at their new apartment with Alaya riding piggyback and an entourage of bedbugs, and it still wouldn't be fair of Alden to complain that Lexi hadn't warned him. Because it wasn't like Alden had warned anyone about anything at all. As the SUV approached the family zone where the Roberts brothers lived, he catalogued a few of his many inconvenient features. I gave Chainer to the Vilras. Alayo thinks I'm some kind of luck rabbit. My best friend is a current criminal and future vigilante who I am happily aiding and abetting. Prone to nightly wanderings. May disappear suddenly without warning. He was going to be an amazing roommate anyway. Lexi was the surly one. Lute was the school punching bag with the dark sense of humor. If Alden acted like an antisocial insomniac, then Hoyu might end up being the only pleasant one in the whole group. I'm going to be so damn easy to get along with that Lexi feels guilty every time he glares at me. He smiled at the thought. In pursuit of this goal, he'd offered to pick up everyone and help with their belongings. Hoyu had thanked him and said that he was already at the new apartment with his mother. Lexi had refused. Luke still hadn't responded. Con, on the other hand, was waiting outside his building with 7 other people who were left over from the party and enough luggage to sink a ship. They were playing rock paper scissors to see who got to ride and who had to head toward Apex on their own. "I couldn't sit on someone's lap," Astrid protested as the winners piled into the vehicle. The other losers were already trudging toward the nearest bus stop together. "We could at least take her sleeping bag so she doesn't have to carry it around," Alden suggested, moving into the passenger seat. Con patted him happily on the shoulder before climbing in and squeezing into the back between Everly and Mehdi. "Nope," Heloisa said from the captain's chair she had just claimed. Her teddy bear purse was now wearing a caution tape bow tie. She was the one who wanted additional consequences for losers. "No take-backs," Mehdi added. Then he yawned loudly. Alden had the impression that nobody in this group was well rested. Everly was drinking a canned coffee in the back with a look on her face that said it was a necessity, not a pleasure. Heloisa was still boisterous, and Con was still trying to carry on multiple conversations at once as they set off. But even their energy had that slightly unhinged quality that came from having been without sleep. Heloisa kept laughing at things that were only mildly funny, and Con blanked on the word crosswalk in English and ended up calling it the road for foot people greater than in Russian. Which Alden was betting wasn't correct either. Their other passenger was the Bowmeister who'd shot Alden, a lot, during the combat assessment. His preferred name had been Reinhard. Now it was showing up as Reinhardt, and Alden wasn't sure if he was brainstorming hero names for himself and had forgotten he'd left one up or if he really wanted people to call him that. So he was avoiding calling him anything for now. All in all, he was relieved when they arrived on campus. He made an excuse about needing to make a call to separate himself from the group and get his bearings. He walked the perimeter of Chelena Circle. It was also a move-in opportunity for arts and sciences, and all the new students from those much larger programs wandering around with family, friends, and suitcases made for an atmosphere that hovered between festive and stressful. Alden had gotten his chauffeur to re-entrust him with his belongings. He was enjoying the combo of his movement rate plus unnaturally lightweight baggage a lot. He only regretted the fact that none of these Apex people were nearly as impressed with him as he was with himself. Though a passing dad did cheer at him as he ran by with a recliner chair over his own head. Alden waved at the 2 kids, someone's younger siblings he assumed, bouncing and squealing in the seat. The dormitory he'd been assigned to was called Garden Hall. It was built of gray stone, and it had decorative forest green shutters. Carefully controlled ivy crept up the sides of the building without getting in the way of a single window. It looked like an English cottage had gotten hit with an enlargement spell. It was 3 stories tall, and it did have a line of evergreen trees and a gardenish outdoor area separating it from a busy street on the campus's edge. There were a couple of grills, tables, and lots of planters full of flowers and herbs that were maintained by students who had each put up signs in their allotted space, "Do not touch this tree. Rocco will kill you. Percy's garden. Take whatever you need. For a class project. Don't eat it. Thanks." TW as he entered the building, the words, "Welcome home, Alden," scrolled across his vision. That's a nice touch. He examined the main common area. It was more practical than grand. It had concrete floors, tables, a few exhausted-looking sofas. Floor-to-ceiling shelves full of borrowable books and games separated the seating area from a community kitchen that was currently home to a trio of guys who were discussing a single bowl of brownie batter like the fate of the world hung in the balance. He took the stairs up to the 2nd floor, made his way down a hall bustling with people, and found his new apartment. Although he double-kicked the number over the entry pad twice just to be completely sure before he stepped through the wide-open door. He'd been expecting to find 3 teenaged boys, not 2 grown women examining every neck and stain in the place. I think that might be Hoyu's mom. He watched the slim, brunette woman in the gray sweatshirt give the fridge a bear hug and lift it off the floor while her peach-haired helper peered underneath. "Nothing, ma'am. The smell isn't coming from under here either." She set the fridge down carefully, not looking even slightly strained. Definitely Hoyu's mom, Alden decided. He'd heard that both of his parents were Dura brutes previously, but at the party last night he learned that they were elite ones. The two of them shared a working name, Omega Scorpi. They were part of a hero group that had agreements with several different governments to provide pre-vetted heavy hitters on short notice to deal with sudden upticks in violence or large disasters. And they were both on call for different Anzidora battle groups, too. It sounded like they'd balance superhero work with having a kid by trying to avoid taking jobs at the same time, though that didn't always work out. With Hoyu's dad training for a demon fight, his mom was now free to suspiciously sniff the air in this apartment and help her son move in. She was eyeing the vent in the ceiling when the woman with the pinkish-orange hair spotted Alden. "Oh, it's Alden Thorne," she said. "Ma'am, he's here." Before Alden even had time to be surprised, he found himself ushered into the apartment by the two of them. "I'm Molly, Mrs. Zhangdamir's assistant. Give me your bag, dear. That looks heavy. It's so nice to meet you. Have you had breakfast?" The boys went to Cafeteria North. "We can have them pick something up for you. Lexi and Hoyu have already selected their rooms, but you can choose from the last two. This one is the best. Don't you think, Molly?" "I do. The one by the bathroom has some annoyances. Look here, kid, you've got plenty of drawers built in behind this panel. We're going shopping for the living room later, so don't worry about how it looks right now, Alden. The furniture is terrible. Depressing. Very depressing. It was when I went to school here, too. They chose indestructibility over comfort. Are you sure you brought everything you need? This is a big bag, but since you're coming in from intake instead of home, sheets. Molly, we might need to add sheets to the list for him." "Wait. What's happening here?" thought Alden. 20 seconds had elapsed. If that. He stood at the foot of the elevated twin bed and desk combo that had just been assigned to him. His head was whirling from the sudden input, and he was trying to find words that would slow the two of them down. "I ordered sheets and stuff for the bed. It should be delivered this afternoon," he said when they both happened to pause for breath at the same time. For once, he hadn't done it through Dragon Rabbit. He'd spent a lot of time thinking about sleep comfort and had picked out everything himself. He didn't know if having a white noise machine and blankets that adjusted their own temperature throughout the night was necessary, but it was worth a try. "You're so on top of things," Mrs. Zhangdamir said with a smile. "Hoyu always keeps up with his schoolwork, but bedding? He would sleep on a bare mattress using dirty laundry as a pillow for months before he decided to do anything about it." She looked around the room again. "We'll leave you to unpack your own things. But first, do you want a ladder for the bed? It seems like the boys who lived here before you either didn't like them or lost them somehow because there isn't one in any of your rooms. Hoyu and Lexi didn't mind, but it should be easy enough to track one down." "Oh, Alden examined the loft bed. "I don't think it'll be a problem." All right. We'll get out of your hair. If you change your mind or think of anything you need, just let us know. Molly, the odor. I'll call in a professional sniffer if we can't pin it down ourselves, ma'am." When they were gone, Alden inhaled deeply. He couldn't detect any foul scents. Newish paint. Whatever cleaners the ladies had been using to wipe down the place. I guess Mrs. Zhangdamir probably has a slightly enhanced sense of smell. He needed to look up her first name when he got a second. The room wasn't as glamorous as the one he'd just left behind. Intake was like a modern luxury hotel dedicated to making teenagers feel less stressed out. Garden Hall had everything Alden needed, but it was more of a functional place to crash. The loft bed and the desk and chair below it were the only furniture. He appreciated that, since space was at a premium. He only had room to add one more piece, and he'd like to choose it himself. Something to make it more homey. The floors were polished concrete up here on the second story, too. And combined with white walls and a steel-framed bed, there wasn't a lot of warmth. The window looked out over a walkway that separated the dormitory from an identical girls-only building. The owner of the room directly opposite his had hung the Botswanan flag in her window. Alden unpacked everything. Even though he wasted time fiddling with the layout of his desk, it still didn't take very long. Voices and the occasional banging sound were coming through the door, so the soundproofing within the apartment itself here was pretty non-existent. "I'll have to buy something for that," he heard Hoyu's voice. He stepped out of his room in time to see the other boy's mother casually grabbing him by the chin and wiping powdered sugar off his cheek with the sleeve of her sweatshirt. He spotted Alden. "Mom," he said, embarrassed. "I can clean my own face." "But you didn't," she replied, releasing him and heading into his room. "Now, are you sure you have to have your entire skateboard collection with you? You can only ride one at a time." Alden explored the rest of the apartment. His bedroom was right beside Hoyu's. Lute and Lexi were across the hall in windowless rooms. They had screens on the wall where windows would have been, but it was a definite downgrade in his opinion. He was surprised Lexi had chosen it for himself. Lute, who still hadn't shown up, would be beside the shared bathroom. They had a pair of sinks with mirrored medicine cabinets, a single shower stall, and a deep claw-footed tub that looked like it might be both the apartment's best and most troublesome feature. On the one hand, it looked like the kind of tub you could sink into up to your eyebrows and boil yourself in for hours. Alden had never had a tub like that, and he liked the sound of it. But it's in a shared bathroom. I guess we'll figure out bathing etiquette somehow. Thankfully the toilet was in its own separate spot, closeted in a cubby with another sink. The kitchen was just a fridge, a microwave, and a table. No dishes in the few cabinets. The living area had a dark beige love seat and matching chairs. They didn't look that bad, but sitting on one was a lot like sitting on a cement bench. They had a decent television, built-in shelving, and an infrared heater disguised as a fireplace. Alden was particularly charmed by that last feature. It had a remote control you could use to make the logs glow different colors and emit crackling sounds. He was playing with it when Luke finally arrived, dragging a pair of rolling heart-sided suitcases that had been heavily decorated with markers. His face was dark. A personal filming drone, a spherical one with a rainbow propeller, was following along behind him. He stepped through the door, and the drone trailed after him. The second it crossed the threshold, he whipped off the ball cap he was wearing and smashed the small device out of the air with it. It hit the floor and skittered across it with a plaintive whoop, and Luke leapt after it to grind it into the concrete with a polished black combat boot. Alden watched in alarm while the other boys stomped the drone viciously. "I think it's dead," he said at last. Luke brushed his blonde bangs out of his face. He had decorated his eye patch since class yesterday, or he'd gotten a new one. It had a big red X painted on it now. "They are not allowed to follow you into your home." He grunted and kicked at the drone rubble some more. "I guess I need to start catching them and selling them, but this is more satisfying." "It's a paparazzi drone?" "Only if it's an impoverished paparazzi. A cheap one like this probably belongs to some campus deckhead who has nothing better to do with their Saturday morning than piss me off. I hope their genitals rot off and—" He trailed off as Hoyu's mother appeared. Molly was on her heels, air-typing and muttering about the caulking on the shower. "Hello, Lute," said Mrs. Zhangdamir. "You might not remember me. I visited your class when you were in 4th grade with Hoyu, but that was quite a while back, wasn't it? You've gotten so much more mature." The hesitation made Alden wonder if she'd been about to say taller and had changed her mind at the last second. Lute stared down at his boots and brushed his bangs awkwardly over his eye patch. Yes. I remember. Hi. I'm really glad to be roommates with Hoyu. Are we expecting your mother and father to stop by today?" she asked. "Or any other family helpers?" She said it lightly, but Molly's fingers stopped tapping at the air in front of her face and her eyes flicked toward Lute. "No," he said in a stiff voice. "I'm on my own." A noticeable tension left the room. "Well, it's just me and you getting the boys settled in today, Molly." "Yes, ma'am. The sniffer is on his way." "Lute, I was telling Alden earlier that we're planning a shopping trip for this afternoon to pick up anything you might have forgotten and collect some creature comforts for the apartment." If you want to add something to the list or come along and pick out some things for yourself, we'll head out this afternoon? Yeah. Yes. That would be good. Thank you. I'll take care of the drone, Molly said. It won't be the first time I've sorted one out. Please stand back. Luke stepped aside, and Molly reached out with a splayed hand. She fixed her eyes on the rubble and slowly drew her fingers together. The pieces of the drone ground into each other with squeals and snapping sounds. Then she made a beckoning motion and the crumbs of the device floated over to her hand. She sifted through them. The microphones and cameras are all destroyed, she announced. I'll throw this in the trash. I've already hired a car service for the day, Alden said into the awkward silence that followed. An SUV. If anyone wants to use it for anything. That sounds comfortable. Hoyu's mother smiled at him. Molly brought a car, but 6 of us aren't going to fit in a compact. Loot, have you had breakfast? Line of asterisks. Alden had finished unpacking so much quicker than everyone else that he was the only one who couldn't seem to find anything to do. He knocked on Lexi's door and offered to help him with his things, only to be met with a blank expression and a monosyllabic refusal. Alden smiled at him and cheerfully announced that he'd go check on the others instead. I'm going to be such a good roommate to you, Mr. Standoffish. Just you wait. Hoyu was assembling a rack that was supposed to display his skateboards. He also had a bookcase in progress and boxes of Chinese and Turkish comics. I read too many of them, he confessed. I call it language study, but really I just like them. Loot was trying to cram an impossible number of clothes and shoes into his closet. They'd all been vacuum bagged to fit in his suitcases, and every time he opened another one, his room lost square footage. Lexi said last night that you had a harp you needed help with. My concert harp. I can actually move it myself, but this building was designed by sadists who thought about didn't need elevators. I'd like to have another person to get it up the staircase. Or to make sure nobody messes with me while I'm trying to get it up the staircase. Is it downstairs now, or? Loot was trying to make a denim jacket fit onto the same hanger as a sweater with a toucan on the front. It's locked in the teacher's office so that people can't fuck with it. I can go get it whenever, but I'd rather not roll it all the way across campus on its cart if I don't have to. Do you think that SUV you offered has removable seats? I can carry it, Alden said. Do you know how big a pedal harp is and what a great one costs? About as tall as me? And a lot? But my skill literally protects things I'm carrying, so I'm definitely a good delicate object mover. Taller than you. But I'll take the help if you're volunteering. Let's take Lexi, too. He seems busy. Luke stood up and went to bang on the wall. Lexi. Come protect my harp with your personality and that creepy thing you picked for your mastery. It's called mine, brother, Alden murmured. Luke raised an eyebrow at him. Is that supposed to make it less creepy? To Alden's total surprise, Lexi stuck his head in the room a minute later. Yeah, I can come. He frowned at Luke's pants. Did you cut those in half and put them back together with safety pins? Do you like them? Luke gestured at the line of pins running down the sides of his legs. I think if you walk past a large enough magnet we'll have to call Hoyu's mother to unstick you. I like them, said Alden. I wouldn't wear them myself, but they look cool. Thank you, Alden. Luke slipped past Lexi and elbowed him in the ribs. See? That's how you say nice things to people. You used to be such a polite guy, and now you're going through this angry phase. Don't get me wrong, I approve, but aren't you supposed to be growing out of teen angst at your age instead of into it? Can't I come, too? Hoyu had just stepped out of his own room. He lowered his voice. I don't want to be here when the professional smeller arrives. It's weird. He didn't expound on this opinion as they left the dorm and cut through campus toward the music department, but Luke certainly did. People who can sniff out the ghosts of your past farts are no fun at all, he said, sticking his hands into his pockets as they headed past the Forthright building. It's bad enough to wonder if you brushed away your morning breath and used plenty of deodorant around regular people. There are some things we aren't supposed to know about each other from across a room. what you ate last night, what you did this morning, whether you wiped really good or you were in a hurry. Alden side-eyed him. These things should be a man's own business. I say we move my harp slowly. I agree, Hoyu said. And I'm sorry about my mom, you guys. If she's taking over too much I can ask her to back down. No, she's so nice, said Alden. It's fine, Lexi said. Luke peered around Alden to look at Hoyu. She doesn't have a problem with me? Why would she? Luke lifted his eyebrows. Hoyu looked uncomfortable. I don't think my parents ever heard about the incident. Mom got summoned on pretty short notice around then. She was somewhere so far out of reach we couldn't even call her. And Dad was bolstering the Hong Kong hero team while they handled that metal melter greater than person. He was home every chance he got, but it wasn't like I brought it up with him. It was ages ago, Lexi said flatly. It was childish. Your whole grade has always been full of talking hemorrhoids. They're not that bad. Hoyu protested. Everyone's gotten more serious since affixing, too. Lexi grunted. For a minute, there was only the sound of their shoes hitting the pavers. Alden wondered what on earth Luke had done in middle school. It sounded like it was a personal screw-up they were talking about rather than something related to his family. One bad enough that he thought a former classmate's parents might still have a problem with him. Can't I ask? It would be better if one of them would realize he was clueless and offer the info up, but they didn't seem to be considering him at all. Your mom was working with the Artonans right then, Luke said finally. I knew she did sometimes, but I didn't realize. She's been getting summoned more for the past few years, said Hoyu. I've stopped telling people every time she's gone. They always say the wrong thing. And she gets summoned for combat jobs. Yes, Hoyu said. Sorry, Luke said quietly. She doesn't mind. She's got a team of alien avowed she works with usually. I don't know much, but she says it's fine. And Dad says it's fine. So, it's fine. I meant I was sorry for her back then. I shouldn't have done it. Done what? But now they were all so serious, he couldn't ask. Hoyu smiled at Luke. Like Lexi says. It was ages ago. And maybe we deserved it a little. I never brought it up with my parents because I thought they'd be mad at me if I explained it all. Dad especially. He hates bullies. He'd have wanted to know why I didn't do anything to stop them from picking on you. Wow. Pressure, said Luke. He sidestepped the stump on a fallen leaf. You hero babies have some intense parents. Let's cut across the quad here. It's quicker. Aren't we on the college campus now? Alden asked, blinking in the glare of sunlight bouncing off the curved surface of a metal statue at the center of the quad. Yep, Luke said. The music programs share a lot of spaces. And the instructor who offered her office for harp storage teaches uni classes, too. Lexi frowned. It just occurred to me to wonder. You are still in first year, aren't you? I haven't been taking extra classes to speed through. I'll be a second year when January quarter starts. The frown deepened. Luke's own expression brightened at the sight. Oh, are you mad I'm your senior now? You wouldn't be if I had chosen sciences. Superhuman studies has a ton of classes they won't let me test out of. Luke grinned. You can call me senpai or, we are not doing that. Hoyu laughed. Are you the oldest in your admissions group? You are, aren't you? Luke said. I am not. There's an adjuster who's only a month away from 17. Max? Alden guessed. Lexi nodded. I'm 16, too, said Alden. So there's a decent chance I'm older than, my birthday is February 18th, Lexi said. March 25th, said Alden. So you're the second oldest in your group, Lexi. It's not a big deal. His voice was stiff. I know that, said Luke. But do you? A few minutes later, they pushed through the front doors of a huge performing arts building, and Luke led the way into a transparent tube elevator that lifted them slowly through a massive blown glass art piece to the 6th floor. This is the scenic route, he informed Alden. There are faster elevators. But it's cool to take this one when the place is empty. There's usually a long wait for it. Hoyu's nose was almost pressed to the wall as he examined the floating pink and blue bubbles that made up the installation. "I rode on this when I was little," he said. "My parents brought me here to see a show. But I remember the chandelier being different. They changed it when I was around 10, said Lexi. "My father was upset. One of his roommates made the old one." The space darkened and flames flickered to life inside some of the bubbles as the elevator approached the top. It was eerily beautiful. "Molly says we need to pick a theme for our living room or else we'll all be adding things to it that don't match and making it look cluttered," Hoyu said suddenly. Lexi shrugged. "As long as the theme isn't something ridiculous, that's probably a good. Can't we do this?" Hoyu was pointing eagerly at the nearest fireorb. The other three stared at him. "So, as the resident arts program student," Luke said slowly, "I compliment you for your ambition. Magic candle balls floating in an impenetrable darkness are a vibe. But I don't see how we could pull it off as a decor scheme. And if we paint the whole suite black, everyone's just going to think we're aspiring vampires. We could do all black furniture," said Hoyu. "And one of those chair swings shaped like a bubble. And an orange and yellow rug." Lute and Lexi both cringed. Hoyu didn't notice. "And if we keep the lights turned off and get some blackout curtains, it could work." Alden pictured himself fumbling his way through a pitch-black apartment, tripping over a neon orange rug he couldn't see, and colliding with a plastic bubble swing. He didn't know what he wanted their new apartment to look like, but he didn't think that was it. "I think the fireplace is pretty neat," he offered. "A fireplace is like a candle ball," Lexi said so quickly that Alden was sure he would have jumped on any other idea. "Let's build around it. Nighttime hunting lodge. Or ski lodge," Luke suggested. He glanced over at Hoyu as the elevator emerged into the light again. "Dark furniture. A faux fur throw. Some lamps with dimmers maybe. I'm sure we can find a round glass one somewhere." "Okay," Hoyu said happily. "That sounds fun, too." "Oh. He's easy to please." "I like lodge," said Alden. He wasn't sure what the difference was between hunting lodge style and ski lodge style. "That's fine," said Lexi. "No bearskin rugs." "Come on. A bear rug would be funny," Luke protested. "No taxidermy anything. I don't want something watching me with its dead plastic eyes." "What have you got against fake eyes, man?" asked Luke. Lexi made a choking noise. Hoyu slapped a hand over his mouth to hold back a laugh. "That was such a hurtful, you know I didn't mean it like that." Alden was watching Lexi backpedal with amusement and sympathy. "You just accidentally brought it up," Luke said in a mournful voice. "Because it's what you really think." "I do not." "I understand. No fake eyes in the apartment." "Hoyu, Alden, will you help me move all my things out into the garden so that I can sleep where I won't offend Lexi? You can have a bear rug. You can have as many dead animals as you want." "I can't believe this thing costs more than my boat." "Since when do you have a boat?" "It was my birthday present." "Oh. Your parents felt sorry for you. Because you got old." They were walking back across campus with Luke's harp, and Alden was trying to focus on not dropping the massive thing or tripping over pavement cracks. "Would it be easier to hold it over your head so you can see where you're putting your feet?" Hoyu asked as they passed the building where Alden had his engaging with the unexpected class. "Definitely." Alden had a death grip on the handles of the thick canvas cover that was currently preserved around the harp. The instrument itself was over 6 feet tall, deep purple, and named Angela Aubergine. "But my homework for science was on gravitational potential energy, and I keep thinking about how there will be $60,000 worth of maple splinters on the ground if I drop it from overhead." "I told you I can wheel her around on her cart if you change your mind," said Lute. He was pushing the cart in question ahead of him. "It's not the end of the world if we hit a few bumps. You were the one who insisted on pretending to be some kind of pseudo-brute. It is really neat that he can do that." Hoyu had been properly enthusiastic about Alden's skill. The other two weren't as much fun. Lexi had started listing things he could have done with it during combat assessment if he wasn't an idiot, And Lute had said, "Oh, so that's what you do." Apparently he'd had absolutely no idea what Alden's talent was until today, and he just hadn't been curious enough to ask. I didn't ask him for details about his powers either, but that was because I assumed he wouldn't tell me for various reasons. Then again, Lute had been forthcoming about at least one of his skills at the funeral. "Hey, what's your skill?" Alden asked as they approached the Magiffies building. "If it's not a secret." "All the Chainer S ranks take the same one," said Lexi. "So it can't be a secret." "Mass Best Owl," Hoyu agreed. "There's always one of them using it on Matadero to support the battle group for the demon fight." "Yeah, they are really noble," Lute said dryly. "You should let people compliment your relatives." "It's not happening in many other contexts these days," Lexi pointed out. "Everyone does appreciate it," said Hoyu. "Loading up that many beneficial chains and having them ready to go must take a ton of prep work on the chainer's part, right? Even if you do get to reduce the effect of one of the halves somehow, paying off the debts must be really involved. Due to the tattoo on my bum cheek, I can neither confirm nor deny the specifics." "You've got a contract tattoo?" Alden exclaimed. "Yeah. How else do you think Alaya keeps every member of a family the size of ours in line? Most of them love doing her bidding for some reason, but I'm not the only problem child. And I like Cousin Amy, but she would literally forget to keep family business to herself if it wasn't magically enforced." Alden was about to ask how Avowed managed contract tattoos with each other if there was no wizard involved. If Lute could tell him, it would solve a major problem. But Hoyu spoke up first. "Is it really on your butt?" he whispered. "I wanted it to be. But when she introduced me to the Artonan tattooer who was going to facilitate the contract, I couldn't bring myself to request the appropriate location. I think it's one of my biggest regrets." "Where?" "Lower back," said Lute. "I figured it was ass adjacent." "Oh, okay. They have a professional do the whole mind alignment thing that Joe mentioned." I knew about Mass Best Owl already. Alden shifted his grip on the harp and kept an eye on the walkway ahead of him. The sign for the gym was just ahead. "I saw you use it at Hannah's funeral." "I meant your other S-rank skill." Hoyu and Lexi both looked back at him. "He should only have Mass Best Owl," said Lexi. "Chainers get one skill to start. And some special chains. I don't know what else they can do, but that's the rumor anyway. Even if he's leveled a couple of times, I haven't. I'm a very lazy Avowed." Lute was still wheeling his cart ahead of them. "Even when he's leveled a few times, he won't get another S-rank skill," Hoyu continued. "Some lower-ranked ones instead. Alaya has earned more than one S, but I don't think any of your other relatives have. Not unless they're keeping it quiet. I understand classes that start with a single primary skill as their main power don't get a same rank one that easily," Alden said. "I'm a rabbit. That's how mine works, too." Instructor Plim was all excited about the theoretical strength of rabbit skills. "But I assumed Chainer skill ranking was a little different, or Lute was. You know. Packing additional heat?" Lexi made a scoffing sound. "Why would you assume?" "Probably because I told him I had my second S already." Lexi stopped walking and Hoyu smacked into his back. Alden dodged around them with Angela. Lute strolled ahead, one of the cartwheels squeaking. "You do not!" Lexi shouted. Then he dashed ahead of Lute and blocked his path. "You don't!" Alden stared at him. He sounded almost horrified. Lexi," said Hoyu. "You're being, how? Him? He didn't affix with a double S," Lexi said. "The universe isn't that, it's absolutely that unfair," said Lute, leaning on the cart. "And it thinks it's a comedian, too." Lexi looked emotional. Not angry, like usual, but terribly upset, as if Lute had just revealed something that shocked and devastated him in equal measure. "Sorry, Alden," Lute said, turning back to smile at him. "I'm doing this thing where I refuse to tell another soul what the second skill is. It's part of my brilliant plan to enrage my grandma, so that she constantly wonders whether I'm lying about having it, and what it is, and it drives her slowly insane." "So you don't really have one?" Hoyu asked. He was giving Lexi a concerned look. I do. But it's pretty unbelievable, right? Which will frustrate Aliyah until she wants to die. Show me your profile. Lexi shouted suddenly. And apparently it will frustrate Lexi Roberts until he wants to die, too. Luke stared at him. Not my intention. I don't see why you're that shocked. By now, you should have just written me off as one of those freaks of Natu. You don't even want it. Lexi said wildly. Why the fuck does the system keep giving everything to people who don't even want it? Luke opened his mouth, but before he could say anything, Lexi had spun on his heel and stalked away at a speed halfway between a walk and a run. Oh no, Hoyu groaned. We were all getting along and... I'm sorry, guys. Let me go talk to him. He'll be fine. See you back at the dorm. He bounded after Lexi. Alden and Luke stood staring after them. Finally, Luke said, You're from the real world. I bet you think we're all nuts. He is the only one who ever calls the rest of Earth the real world. I don't think you're nuts, but I don't understand what Lexi's problem is at all. He's jealous, said Luke. Or maybe it's more accurate to say that people affixing young and high is one of his sore points. I probably shouldn't have teased him about his age. He wouldn't have minded that kind of joking around before, but we aren't really close anymore. I guess the past year has been bad for him, too. He glanced at the harp in Alden's arms. Let's walk slowly and give Hoyu a minute to sort him out. I don't want to make drama when I finally found roommates who aren't assholes. Is Lexi not behaving like an asshole in his opinion? What do you know about life, I guess? Luke asked. Growing up here on Anzidora? I know some of my classmates had normal human groupies even when we were little who followed their every move, so if you were one of those you probably already have a lot of, do they? Yeah. Especially cute people with rich, high-rank parents. Extra especially superheroes kids. Vandy Carrison is in your group, right? She's so awkward sometimes. But she had 100,000 followers who would just listen to her talk about her goals and give her advice while they watched her watch recordings of her parents working. I was more into actual superheroes growing up. Not their offspring. You're a casual. The real fans start analyzing the future high ranks when they're 12 and start placing bets on how they'll affix and what they'll choose when they're 13. Alden stared at him. That's creepy. Luke nodded. Oh yeah. Most people's parents keep them out of it. But some don't. There's internet filtering for minors, but it's not like you can't talk an adult into giving you access early and showing you what the world is really saying about you and your family. Don't get me started. I'm going off track. About Lexi, getting to mid-16 without being selected would have been terrible for him. A black drone skimmed low over their heads, and Luke glared at it until it had passed. He's been very serious about hero work forever as far as I know. And his parents are both A's, so it wasn't like it was a crazy thing for him to want. He was significantly more likely to be a high rank than a mid or low one. Kids here tend to make friends with people who are probably going to be around the same power level as them. Their parents naturally hang out with each other and put them together. By the time you're in late primary school it's just not comfortable to be friends with someone who has a totally different future ahead of them. He gestured grandly at the campus. They start talking about when it is going to happen to them, and the probably A-rank friend mentions moving to Apex and coming to school here. And the probably D-rank friend feels inferior and resentful, and then snap, friendship broken. He shrugged. So Lexi's close friends would have been A's and S's. Probably all hero hopefuls. Probable high ranks start getting really wound up about selection in 7th or 8th grade, and then it hits this fever pitch the second they turn 15. And people ask them every day if it's happened for them yet. It's unbearably fucking obnoxious even if you're not the person who's being quizzed. He bounced the cart over the edge of a curb as they cut across a small parking lot. Yeah, I shouldn't have made fun of his age. I was thinking it was no big deal since he's got his rank now. But I bet he lost all of his friends because of it. Watching them all get chosen one after the other. Some of them have to be first and second years here, but he didn't ask to room with them. They all left him in the dust, And then his little brother almost did, too. And he couldn't just make new friends while he was in rank limbo. He spent. Alden counted backward to Lexi's 15th birthday, then subtracted a few months, since the Meister must have been selected before beginning the application process for CNH, 17-ish months on the edge of his seat watching his life goals and his relationship slowly collapse because of something he couldn't control. That's my read on the situation. It does sound like it would make you insane. Luke nodded. And the guy's a hardcore perfectionist. He probably kept right on going to our With a Hero meetups and attending the weekend seminars and all the other things locals with a yen for Cape Crusading do to prepare. Only instead of being one of the likely candidates, he turned into that pathetic kid who couldn't let it go. Now I feel sad for him. He'll get over it. Luke's expression shifted. About our ski lodge. We want leather furniture, don't we? You and I need to decide right now and align our goals so that we can steer Hoyu away from whatever horrors he'll come up with on his own. Line of asterisks. What was ski lodge style? Alden still didn't know. But he and Lute had found a picture they both liked of a resort lobby in Colorado. It had dark brown furniture, a fireplace, and for throws. It had been photographed with lots of candles, which made Hoyu happy. And Lexi seemed to feel too bad about his freak-out to disagree with anything when they showed it to him. So it was 4 votes in favor from the apartment residents. And 2 votes against from the adult voices of reason, who were trying to set a budget that didn't accommodate Alden's desire for very nice rugs and Lute's passion for a particular pair of distressed leather chairs. As Gilbert dropped them off outside the main entrance at Rosa Grove Mall, Hoyu was sending everyone pictures of a copper toaster he wanted. His mother finally turned to them all and held up her hands. "All right," she said. "Before we go in, we have to have a budget. And we have to decide what one thing each of you can't stand to live without in the new apartment's shared living area. Remember, you're going to be spending money decorating your own rooms, too. I have 750 Argol dedicated to the apartment in my planner," Lexi said promptly. 250 can go to the shared area. I've got 1,500 saved from my avowed stipends, and I don't mind if we spend half of it on the kitchen and living room, said Hoyu. Luke chewed on his bottom lip and stared off into space. I can spend 1,500, too, he said finally. That took you a while, Molly said. Are you sure? Luke shrugged at the assistant. I had to think through how long it would be before I had more money coming in, and how much it would cost to rent another place if Lexi decides he can't stand living with my fake eye. Hoyu and Alden both snickered. Why are you two still laughing at that joke? Lexi demanded. He's worked it in half a dozen times since this morning. I can't help it. Hoyu protested. It gets funnier every time. Alden, what about you, sweetheart? Mrs. Zhangdemir gave him a warm smile. Don't feel obligated to spend more than you want. She's worried because it's taking me so long to answer. She was thoughtful. And she'd been going out of her way to mom him all day. Adults had done that more often when he was younger, and he had usually been offended. Now that he was older and actually appreciated the effort, people rarely bothered. But she was moaning in a way that wasn't exactly. There's no way Hoyu's family isn't rich, so I'm pretty sure this is a mini lesson in responsibility. Like, you've got money of your own now with your new avowed stipend, so let's spend it wisely. Lexi tattled on to their parents, too, for blowing all of his on party supplies. Luke's situation was more complex. He had a family who could buy him musical instruments that cost more than cars, but he was now at odds with them. And he had been living on his own off-campus somewhere. Lexi and Hoyu have really nice places to go back to whenever they want. Their families are right here, too. Most of the time. The dorm is like practice independence, I guess, so she's Earth to Alden, Luke said, waving a hand in front of his face. What planet are you lost on? Alden snapped out of it. They were standing on the sidewalk between the parking lot and the mall. This wasn't the place to think that deeply about life. I'm not lost on another planet, he said, for a change. Luke looked startled. Alden cleared his throat. Sorry. I was thinking about budgets and houses. I haven't had one for a long time. A home. And we get to keep this apartment for as long as we're in high school, unless we decide to apply for a different building, right? And it's not like I'm planning to hate you all and move out. You guys seem cool. Stop, you're making me blush, said Loot. Alden ignored the snark. I don't have any other place to go on Anzidora, so Garden Hall is it for me. I'll be there every weekend and every holiday. I don't even have a way to get home for Christmas for the next 2 years. And I don't actually need to be precious with my financial resources, so I'd rather not have one. They were all a little wide-eyed. Molly's fingers had stilled in the middle of another typing session. A budget. He clarified. I'd rather not have a budget. Can everyone else just save their budgets for their own rooms, and I can buy whatever we want for the rest of it? To make it look like the picture. After a few more seconds of silence, Alden started to wonder if what he'd said sounded stranger to them than it did to him. It's fine if you all want to do something else. I don't mind that, eh? Good Lord. You can come to my house for Christmas, said Lexi. We import a real tree and everything. My family doesn't celebrate Christmas usually, said Hoyu. But we could this year. You don't have to play the homeless card, Alden. Molly glared. Lutvolra. That's, what? I'm saying I don't need him to justify his spending urges. I'm amazing at letting other people buy things for me. Look here, Rabbit. He air-typed, and a picture of the furniture set he liked appeared in their group chat. If we are not being responsible, then we need both armchairs, the Chesterfield, and the big storage ottoman with the top that reverses into a coffee table. They have the whole set here. I still want to buy the toaster myself, said Hoyu. I really like it. Lexi squinted at Alden. If you're paying for everything, then do you want to pick it all? No. I like all the stuff we've talked about so far. And I did find the picture of the lodge in the first place. Let's just get whatever everyone wants if it looks good. There's a copper slow cooker that matches the toaster. Do you cook or something, Hoyu? Luke asked. You just drop things that taste good together in the pot, right? How hard can it be? Line of asterisks. As the four of them headed into the mall, Hoyu's mother and her assistant trailed behind them. Molly. Tissues, ma'am. Mrs. Zhangdamir blinked at her. No. I'm fine. I'm not, Molly said, wiping at her nose with a tissue she'd just pulled from her purse. That American boy doesn't have parents. And I don't know what's going on with the Volras and why they're making that poor child run around with one eye. And little Hoyu's all grown up. Not quite. It sounds like he is about to spend his entire stipend for the month on kitchen appliances he'll never use. But he's getting there. And worrying me to death in the process. You know he could have roomed with almost anyone? He's chosen Lexi and this group. He won't hear a word against it. Why? I have no idea. She shook her head. I was just going to let you know that I've had another mission invitation. Next month. I'll be gone for a few weeks this time. Yes, ma'am, Molly said quietly. Why so glum? I could turn this one down if I chose to. She watched her son spring up the steps to grab the door for the others. He moved differently. It was a small change, one he was probably only half aware of himself, but she had noticed it the moment he affixed. 1 second you're a child, the next. Ma'am. She smiled. Where's my mind going? We've got to get these boys settled into there. Was it a ski lodge or a hunting lodge in the end? A man lodge of some kind. Winter-themed. Possibly there will be a bearskin rug. On top of numerous other rugs. Alden seems to have an obsession with luxury carpeting. Lute and Hoyu want a bear. Based on the conversation in the car, they may or may not be painting the whole place black. I don't understand what they're thinking. I really don't know how they arrived at this either, but all right. A manly winter lodge with rugs and attractive leather furniture they're going to ruin before next term. We have a goal. Come on, Molly. Let's try to impose reason and order where we can. Also, I checked, and not a single one of them has brought their own soap and shampoo. Do they think the school supplies it? I will add it to the list. Tope continued. Thanks for listening.